welcome to the Spiral Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lachelle Weemy, a peak performance coach and business strategist dedicated to helping you see what's possible within you, the blind spots that are holding you back, and the solutions to ensure success and fulfillment without the hustle. I use my secret sauce of metaphysics, brain science, and scripture to work with God to manifest your ideal life and business. If you're ready to create massive forward momentum in your business and bust through the blocks that drag you down, join me on the Spiral Up journey and create the clarity, confidence, and consistency to become the CEO that lives your life by design. It's time to create the sustainable impact, income, and time freedom you desire faster. Now is the time to spiral up. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Spiral Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lachelle Weemy, and we have been talking all about manifesting the last couple of weeks. We are really diving into the 4 main reasons that you are able to manifest sustainable 10K and beyond months with way more ease, way more flow, way more fun, less overthinking, less burnout, right? And I've been talking a lot about the very first step to this manifesting process, which is to stay in high vibes. And I'm just going to remind all of you guys that we're not talking about some generic, woo-woo, dancing underneath the moon, charging our crystals, like all of that stuff. We're talking about working with God to co-create our dream life. We are talking about the manifestation, which is really the realization, the physical evidence of thought and theory. This is the dream and seeing it come to fruition and working with God to co-create that, right? And I just got to tell you that this first step, which is to stay in high vibes, is really just such a freaking amazing fundamental step in this, because we live in a fallen world. And that life is going to continue to throw us curveballs. We are going to get sick. We're going to have people that we care about, have bad things happen to them. We are going to, move away from relationships with people that we once cared about. We're going to, not be able to get pregnant month after month, or, our business is going up and down like this giant roller coaster. Like, there's so many things that can try to knock us off our course and off our journey. And if we can just say, okay, I just need to stay happy, I just need to stay in high vibrations, that's all great and all. But how do we practically do that? What does that look like? And I absolutely love to help my clients stay in this place of peace and joy. And I got to tell you guys that if you can just protect your peace and you can protect your joy, that is the secret to manifestation. That is the secret to high vibes. It is not allowing something outside of you to steal your peace and your joy. And that's what we're going to talk about today inside of our podcast episode, because I want to give you guys some really practical tools to help you do that. And I want you to understand from a metaphysical and brain science perspective that this is key here. Because oftentimes I have people come to me and they're like, Lachelle, this is not what I thought it was going to be, especially my service-based solopreneurs, right? Because we're wearing all the hats, we're doing all the things, our business is going up and down, like the sustainable income and the sustainable impact just feels like it's drowning in pressure and resistance and force. And that's not what we want, right? We want to allow ease and flow to come into our life, to come into our business, to come into our families. And this really stems from our ability to protect our peace and joy. All right. And we think about this in terms of scripture and how often we are reminded to not allow worry to get into in the way of trusting God, and to allow for our faith to be solid and strong, and allow for our thankfulness, and to look at everything with joy and thanksgiving. And that sounds great and all in theory. But what happens when this happens? And what happens if this is going on, right? So one of the things that I have been learning from one of the coaches that I'm working with is this acknowledgement of suffering. And suffering, again, is just going to be our perspective on things, right? Suffering is linked back to, right, the way that we see the world and the way that we see ourselves in the world. And I love her definition of suffering. And she says that this is really just when we allow for anything outside of us to steal our power. She says that it's when we expect any person, place, or thing outside of us to, if we want it to be different than it is. And I think about this and it's like, wow, if I think about suffering and how it really is the opposite of peace and joy. And if suffering is really just me expecting something else to be different than it is, then the best way for me to have peace and joy is to accept things for the way they are. And then it's like, like light bulb moments, right? It's like, okay, so if I can just accept this person who is making bad choices and not living their life the way that I know that they can, and I just allow that to unfold and to be the person that I can be for them, but not take responsibility for them, right? I allow for myself to take my peace back. If I can just acknowledge that this job circumstance or this physical circumstance or the world as a whole and the suffering that we see all over the place is and not try to force it to be different than it is and allow for it to just unfold, I then can take my peace and my joy back. I no longer have to participate in suffering. Now, many of you guys who are listening to this are, in my world because we're right? Like I'm an overachiever. I have always been somebody who can see the potential in things. I can see blind spots and I can see blind or roadblocks, and I can easily determine the best way to bust through them, right? That's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because I can see the blind spots and the roadblocks and ways to get past them, but it also means that I see the blind spots and the roadblocks, right? Like it's where my mind goes. And so it's like, if I keep focusing on what's wrong, then I'm going to continue to stay in suffering. If I continue to have to try to force something and try to create something that isn't what it is, that potentially is suffering. So sometimes it takes my mind into this like giant whirlwind, and it's like, but wait a minute, if this is who I am and this is what my gifting is, and I don't want to add suffering to myself, so who am I and what am I doing? And I think that this is where we really have to just acknowledge that it doesn't mean that we don't get to be who we are. It doesn't mean that we don't get to use our gifts and our skills. It just means that we get to do it in a place that is more empowered, and it's not giving away our power. It's not making the outcome be something that is stealing our power away, right? I get to show up with the motivation of love. I get to show up with this greater sense of how I can help, and I get to release the outcome. I get to allow for it to unfold perfectly perfect the way that it's supposed to. And one of the things that another coach that I've worked with has taught me, and this is so powerful, and I want for all of my codependent friends, because this has been a journey that I've been on for a long time, not even realizing the impacts of that, is that I am not responsible for anyone other than me. I am not responsible for you. I'm responsible to you, meaning that I am responsible to create healthy relationships. I'm responsible to support you, to encourage you, to be kind, to be truthful, the fruits of the spirit, really, right? I'm responsible to you in those spaces, but I am responsible for me. I'm 100% responsible for my life and the outcome of my life, the choices that I've created and the effect from those choices. If I 100% believe that I am 100% responsible for me and to you, then I also have to subscribe to the reality that you, friend, are 100% responsible for you and to me, meaning that what you do with what I give you is on you, meaning that all of the help that I can give you to overcome your roadblocks and your barriers and your blind spots are my expression of being responsible to you. But what you do with that is 100% on you. And when you start to acknowledge that, you start to acknowledge that I do not have to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders anymore. I do not have to hold the responsibility of your happiness, of your successes, of your failures. I just get to be there for you to create the support and the love and the guidance to be responsible to you. And I can hold on to the peace that I have. So let's bring this like theory, this philosophy back into like practical concepts, okay? So if I am thinking about someone and I feel like I'm responsible to them and not for them, I can show up as the best friend, the best daughter, the best coach, the best sister, whatever, and do what I can to be supportive and loving towards you, to you. But I get to honor my peace. I get to honor my joy. I get to honor the fact that I know that I did what I could and I've allowed for you to do what you need to. And if you're not making the right decisions based on, what I think is best for you, I'm going to love you anyway. I'm going to love you anyway. Now, let's just say that, oh my gosh, like it's so interesting when I think about this because I have come so far in such a short period of time. It just honestly blows my mind. And I remember having conversations with my friend Annie at work back when I was a full-time nurse anesthetist. And I remember like literally being in tears, crying at work because I could see the potential for our department. I could see the things that were going wrong and I could see what we needed to do, but I couldn't get through to the right people to make it happen, to make the shifts, right? And I'm like, it's just killing me. I'm like, I know that what's possible. I know what we can do for our colleagues. I know what we can do for our patients. And I kept coming up against roadblock and roadblock and roadblock. And it was frustrating. It was stealing my peace. It was stealing my joy. And I literally felt like I had the weight of the department on my shoulders and I didn't. I was just, a staff nurse and anesthetist, like not just, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like, why was I taking this home with me? Why was I having, losing sleep at night? Why was I, literally crying to my colleague at work around this? And it's like, now that I look back on this, like I did care a lot and I still do. But I had to acknowledge the fact that I am responsible to say the things I needed to say. I had meetings with leadership. I created flow sheets. I created PowerPoints. I had ideas. I came up with solutions instead of always complaining about the problems. I did my part. And when God closed doors and opened doors that forced me to consider leaving this career that I had built because it wasn't where he wanted me to be anymore, I knew that I had done everything that I could do and that I could in peace just to step away. And it was like everything else, like dominoes, fell into place. And I am living the best life that I could possibly live with way more ease, way more joy, way more fun, way less stress. It doesn't mean that I don't care. It means that I do what I can with what I have from where I am. And I allow the outcome to be the responsibility of someone else, or allow God to do what he needs to for our best good. Knowing that everything is perfectly aligning exactly the way that it's supposed to. I think that, another thing that this conversation can do is highlight the fact that none of us are enlightened and perfect, and that we all have things that we bring to the table that impact our ability to show up in the way that we're supposed to. So I'm going to give you an example, another real life practical example. Let's just say that you have somebody that you really care about and your relationship is really it's not amazing, right? Like there's resistance, there's conflict, you just are struggling to see eye to eye on some things, or you just cannot meet in a place where it just feels easy. It feels like you're walking on eggshells, or it feels like things are being forced, or it's just not the way you wanted it to be. Okay. And you're like, oh, like you just keep trying every single angle that you can to try to make things better. And you're trying to be too, responsible to them. But you also have to be responsible for your peace and for your joy. And you have to be able to look at this person with the compassion to recognize that they have their own shit going on in the background that's impacting the way that they're showing up. So let's just say that you have, conflict with this person every time you see each other, or, you struggle every time you're about to send a text, or you see their phone call coming in, you're like, ugh, whatever. Recognizing that this person is seeing the world the way they are because of the limiting beliefs, the experiences that they've been through. Knowing that they're doing the best that they can with what they have from where they are right now. And that you have to trust their journey on this planet and with you. And that, who knows, maybe you being in their life from a more healed perspective is what's giving them the realization that they're not where they want to be. Maybe you being who you are is creating such a wedge that it creates a massive change, and they completely separate themselves from you. But in that separation, they are now on their healing journey that would not have happened if the two of you were still together. So I have conversations with people that I'm like, oh my gosh, like I wouldn't have done it that way. But I have to just allow the fact that I get to be responsible to you, and I get to honor all of the things that have come up in your life up until now that have created this. And I get to just allow for that to happen and allow myself to just trust your journey, that everything is perfectly perfect working out for you too. Maybe you have somebody in your life that you're triggered every single time you're around. You're allowing them to trigger you because you are creating suffering. Why? Because you expect them to be different than they are. Well, if she would just say this or do this, or if she would just, show up this way, or blah, 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 blah. You've literally allowed her to steal your joy and your peace. Her shit is her shit. And now you're allowing her shit to impact you. The more that you do that, guess what, friend? You are allowing yourself to get cycled down the drain of low vibration. And we are talking about manifesting with more ease and joy and flow and peace and gratitude. And so in order for you to do that, you have to allow for them and accept them from who they are. And maybe that means that in that process, you get to just pray for them and release them. Maybe it just means that, you know what, I recognize that this is just a conversation that I can't have with this person. Or I allow myself to just have boundaries. Like I just know that if I want to have a relationship with this person, that I have to keep my interaction with them minimal. Or I have to be around other people. Or maybe you decide that this is not going to be the best person to have in your life at all. And that in order for you to grow, you have to just allow them to be not in your life anymore. But you cannot expect them to be the person that changes. You have to be the change. You have to own your life. You are responsible for you. So the moment that you have given away your power to them because you wish that they were different, you have literally lost your joy because of it. You created suffering because of it. So what I'm going to ask that all of us do is to remember that we're not perfect either. And that some of the things, some of the behaviors, some of the limits, the beliefs that I have triggered somebody else. And that they wish I was different. And that all of us have crap underneath the hood that needs to be recognized and healed. And that's my journey, and that's her journey, or his journey, or the workforce's journey, or my body's, all the things. Like I cannot allow my peace to be subject to something else outside of myself. I cannot allow anything outside of me steal my power. I get to choose to rise above my circumstances. I get to choose to decide that I am going to hold myself accountable for my life and my peace and my joy, instead of letting something outside of me have that power over me. It's really amazing when we think about that, and the moment that we stopped wishing things were different, the moment that we stopped wishing that my business or my job or my husband or my kids or my body or politics or the world or the environment or any of it was different than it is. You have the power to choose your thoughts that create your feelings. You have the power to choose to rise above, or you have the power to give up and give in. And I'm going to tell you right now that giving up and giving in has allowed that person, place, or thing to have power over you. And you've literally created your own suffering by allowing that to happen. Instead, I'm going to ask that you, in addition to holding yourself accountable for your peace and your joy and your vibration, is to acknowledge that everything is perfectly perfect, that we experience a mirror of what we need to see. Oftentimes, the things that we're triggered in others is literally just what we need to deal with and heal ourselves. And that God has placed these people, places, or things in our lives for our good, to help us to learn, to help us evolve, to help us to choose joy and peace in the midst of the circumstances, to allow for us to recognize the contrast and say, I don't want this anymore, I want this. And if I didn't realize how crappy this was, I wouldn't realize how amazing this is. So is it possible that God created these people, these situations, to help you learn what inside of you needs to be healed? To help you understand what you're worthy of, to help you understand what your value is, to help you understand how to choose peace, even in the midst of your tribulation. And I got to tell you that the moment that you can choose peace and joy in the middle of crap is the moment that you've taken your power back. And the moment that you've gotten your power back, the moment that you rise to the highest vibration, the moment that things will start to click into place and you will start to experience what it means to have a manifested abundant life. But you've got to stop giving away your power. You've got to stop wishing that something outside of you is different. You've got to start acknowledging that you, in fact, are allowing the suffering in. Let's just say that you wish you had more help, but yet you're not accepting help, or that person isn't helping you the way that you want it to, or this or that, whatever. Maybe it's just you acknowledging that maybe you just need to let go of your control and to receive. Everything is happening for you. Everything is perfectly perfect for your best good. Everything, every person, every challenge, every situation is for you to evolve, for you to learn how to choose peace. I've spent a lot of time on this very first step in manifesting and staying in high vibes, because this is where people get stuck, because we live in a fallen world. We are not in the Garden of Eden and everything is perfect, but we get to choose to create perfection in our own life, in our own world, because of our thoughts. Because of the way that we view it, the way that we accept it, the way that we choose, the way that we allow, the way that we hold ourselves accountable, the way that we honor peace and joy. So if this is something that you struggle with, because you're like, Lachelle, you don't get it, like life, this and that and whatever else, I don't care about how hard it is. I do and I don't. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love you so much. I'm not going to discount what you're going through. But what I'm saying is that if you allow for that thing to continue to be the thing that has the power, then you're going to continue to stay in a powerless state. So I'm going to say, thank you, God, for bringing what an amazing, huge boulder, so that you get to choose to see how powerful you are to overcome that. We all have our stuff. And I'm going to tell you that there are things that we need to heal under the surface sometimes to be able to help with this. And that this is a process, this is a journey. But the moment that you start to choose to not allow something outside of you to hold your power, you are going to start to see shifts. I promise you. And this is not just a Pollyanna glass half full kind of thing. This is a very intentional way to look at life. And when you look at life like that, you will raise your vibration, and more things, because of the law of attraction, law of vibration, entanglement, will start to interact with that. Life is happening for you, friend. All right. So if you were struggling with any of this, if you feel like, oh my goodness, like I definitely have my own blocks and that are holding me back. I definitely find myself in lower vibrations. I really do wish that I had something to help me get past this. I'm going to make sure that you know about 2 resources that I have. Number 1 is an analysis of your voice that I can actually bind through an algorithm the 3 emotions that you're currently overexpressing and the one that you've been repressing that are holding you back from your true joy and peace. And then I can give you a prescription of music that will balance that out to give you joy and peace on an energetic level in your body. It's so freaking powerful. The second thing that I'm going to offer you is a 6-day experience that you can have around mindset and energy that is going to allow for you to use some software tools that I have that are going to give you a place where you can utilize different tools to keep you in a higher vibration and to allow for you to energetically keep your joy and peace. All right. You have all of these amazing tools. You get to choose. I'm going to say, choose today. Let's end the suffering within our minds and our hearts and our spirits because we choose to. Not allow anything outside of us to take control over our joy. All right, you guys, I'll see you next week. Bye, everybody. So much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Each honest review helps me spiral up so that I can serve you even better. Whether you're feeling a lack of impact, income, or time freedom, or perhaps you're just ready for massive momentum in your business, let's chat. Apply for a breakthrough call so that you can gain clarity, identify what's holding you back, and make a plan to spiral up. Head on over to iam-lifebydesign.com/breakthrough or access the link in the show notes. For immediate support, log into our community, the Better Club. We focus on inspiration, tactical guidance, and support. This is a community that wants to be better, do better, and have better in life and in business, and we're going to help you do the same. Let's spiral up, friends.